Tyler Jenkins thought pouring scalding coffee over someone's head would cement his reputation. What he didn't realize was that Vincent Torres wasn't just any transfer student. He was a decorated martial artist who'd learned that true power lies in restraint, not retaliation. When Tyler pushed too far, the entire school would witness a masterclass in control that would flip their world upside down. But the real fight wouldn't happen with fists. It would unfold in a battle of truth versus lies, where the quietest voice would shake the loudest throne. The autumn air in Riverside carried the scent of fallen leaves and fresh rain as the morning bus groaned to a halt outside Riverside Academy. Students poured out in their usual clusters, some laughing, others yawning, a few already absorbed in their phones. Among them stepped Vincent Torres, 18 years old, carrying a worn backpack that had seen better days. His dark eyes scanned the unfamiliar campus with quiet assessment. Everything about him spoke of someone accustomed to measuring distance, timing, and potential threats. Years of taekwondo training had honed more than his reflexes. It had shaped his entire way of seeing the world. Nobody at Riverside knew Vincent's history. They didn't know about the tournaments he'd dominated across 3 states, the black belt he'd earned at 15, or the philosophy his instructor had drilled into him: a warrior who cannot control himself has already lost. To everyone filtering through those front doors, Vincent was simply another new face to be sized up, categorized, and, if you were Tyler Jenkins, potentially exploited. The second-floor corridor buzzed with pre-class energy. Lockers slammed, voices overlapped, and laughter echoed off the tile walls. Tyler Jenkins leaned against a row of lockers, surrounded by his usual entourage. Everything about Tyler screamed privilege. The designer sneakers that cost more than some students' monthly allowances, the carefully styled hair, the easy confidence of someone who'd never been told no. At Riverside, Tyler's word was law. Teachers looked the other way. Students kept their heads down. Even the administration seemed reluctant to challenge the golden boy, whose family's donations funded half the school's programs. Tyler was mid-conversation when Vincent appeared at the corridor's far end. Something about the new kid's posture, straight-backed, unhurried, seemingly immune to the social currents swirling around him, caught Tyler's attention immediately. Vincent walked like someone comfortable in his own skin, neither seeking approval nor fearing judgment. That kind of confidence was Tyler's territory, and he didn't appreciate the competition. "Fresh meat," Tyler muttered, loud enough for his friends to snicker. Vincent heard it but didn't react. He simply continued walking, his peripheral vision cataloging exits, noting the power dynamics playing out around him. Near the math classroom, he spotted a smaller student pressed against the lockers, trying to make himself invisible. Nathan Price, a sophomore with wire-rimmed glasses and perpetually hunched shoulders, had perfected the art of disappearing in plain sight. But Vincent saw the fear in Nathan's eyes. The same fear he'd seen in younger students at his old gym, kids who'd come seeking confidence, but first had to overcome terror. Their eyes met for a fraction of a second. Nathan quickly looked away, but Vincent had already read the situation. This school had a predator, and Nathan was prey. Tyler pushed off from the lockers and deliberately veered into Vincent's path. The shoulder check was calculated. Hard enough to make a statement, not quite hard enough to justify a fight. Vincent's textbooks scattered across the floor. A collective "ooh" rippled through the watching students. Phones emerged from pockets, cameras ready to capture whatever happened next. This was the moment that defined new students at Riverside, how they responded to Tyler's initiation. Vincent bent down slowly, methodically gathering his books. His face remained completely neutral. No anger, no embarrassment, no fear. He moved with the same deliberate control he brought to every kata, every sparring match. Tyler stood over him, waiting for the explosion that never came. The smirk on Tyler's face faltered slightly as Vincent straightened up, met his eyes with an unsettling calm, and simply walked past. "Welcome to Riverside," Tyler called after him, his voice dripping with mock friendliness. His friends laughed on cue, but something felt off. The script hadn't played out right. Vincent should have gotten angry, should have given Tyler an excuse to escalate, should have shown he could be broken. Instead, he'd responded with something Tyler didn't understand. Absolute self-control. Nathan watched from his corner, his notebook clutched to his chest like a shield. He'd witnessed hundreds of these encounters over the past 2 years. They always ended the same way, with the victim either lashing out and getting suspended or backing down and becoming Tyler's permanent target. But Vincent had done neither. He'd simply absorbed the provocation and moved on. For the first time in months, Nathan felt a flicker of something he'd almost forgotten: hope. The morning classes passed in a blur of algebra and English literature, but the real education was happening in whispered conversations throughout Riverside Academy. The new kids' non-reaction had become the day's hottest topic. Some students thought Vincent was smart, avoiding conflict on his first day. Others whispered that he was scared, that Tyler had already established dominance. Tyler himself sat through history class seething, his pen tapping an agitated rhythm on his desk. The encounter kept replaying in his mind, and each time it felt less like victory and more like nothing, and nothing was worse than defeat. When the lunch bell rang, the cafeteria erupted into its typical chaos. The smell of overcooked pasta and questionable pizza filled the air. Students claimed their usual territories: athletes by the windows, drama kids near the stage, various social clusters staking out their turf. Vincent grabbed a simple tray and headed for a quiet corner near the back, away from the social warfare playing out across the room. He ate methodically, apparently oblivious to the attention he was drawing. A few tables over, Nathan picked at his food, stealing glances at Vincent. The new student's calm fascinated him. How could someone so new, so clearly in Tyler's crosshairs, seem so utterly unbothered? Nathan had spent 2 years perfecting his invisibility, learning which hallways to avoid, which bathrooms were safe, which teachers would actually intervene. But Vincent acted like he was immune to the social rules that governed everyone else. Tyler sat at his usual central table, holding court among his friends. But today, the laughter felt forced, the bravado hollow. Several of his crew kept glancing toward Vincent, and Tyler caught it every time. The new kid was somehow stealing attention simply by existing. Tyler gripped his soda can tighter, his knuckles whitening. His friend leaned in, voice low. "So, what's the play? You gonna let him just walk around like he owns the place?" Tyler's jaw clenched. The question stung because it echoed his own thoughts. He'd built his reputation on immediate dominance, on making sure everyone knew their place. Vincent's indifference was worse than defiance. It suggested that Tyler's opinion, Tyler's approval, Tyler's very existence didn't matter. And that could not stand. Without a word, Tyler stood up. His friends immediately followed, sensing blood in the water. The cafeteria's noise level dropped as students noticed the movement. Everyone knew what happened when Tyler Jenkins stood up with that look on his face. Vincent continued eating, seemingly unaware of the predator approaching, but his peripheral vision tracked every step, every angle. Years of sparring had taught him to never lose situational awareness. Tyler stopped directly in front of Vincent's table. In his hand was a cup of lukewarm coffee left over from breakfast, bitter, stale, deliberately chosen for maximum humiliation. The cafeteria fell silent. Even the lunch ladies stopped their work to watch. Phones rose everywhere, hungry for content. "You know what, Torres?" Tyler's voice carried across the room. "I don't think you understand how things work here. Let me give you a proper Riverside welcome." The coffee poured in slow motion from Vincent's perspective. Training had taught him to process time differently in moments of crisis. He could have moved, could have blocked it, could have sent the cup flying back into Tyler's face with a simple wrist technique. Instead, he made a choice. He let it happen. The liquid soaked his hair, ran down his face, stained his shirt. The cafeteria erupted. Laughter, gasps, the manic clicking of phone cameras. Tyler stood with his arms spread wide, drinking in what he thought was victory. This was his moment, his throne reclaimed. But then Vincent did something that turned the entire scene on its head. He slowly wiped his face with his sleeve, stood up, and looked directly at Tyler. His voice was quiet, but it carried, "Are you finished?" 2 words. That's all it took. The laughter choked off as if someone had flipped a switch, because Vincent's eyes weren't angry or humiliated or afraid. They were patient, almost pitying, like an adult watching a child throw a tantrum. Tyler's smile froze on his face as he suddenly realized that everyone in the cafeteria was looking at him differently now, not with admiration, but with something closer to confusion. Why wasn't the new kid reacting? Why did Tyler suddenly look like the desperate one? "Yeah," Tyler managed, but his voice had lost its power. "Yeah, I'm finished." "Good," Vincent said simply, and sat back down to continue his meal as if nothing had happened. His hands were steady as he picked up his fork. Not a tremor, not a hint of emotion, just perfect, unsettling calm. Tyler stood there for 3 heartbeats too long, suddenly aware of dozens of eyes on him. His friends shuffled uncomfortably. The joke had somehow turned sour. He turned and walked back to his table, forcing a laugh that nobody believed. Around the cafeteria, students exchanged looks. Something had shifted in the ecosystem of Riverside Academy, though nobody could quite put their finger on what. Nathan sat frozen, his food forgotten. He'd just witnessed the impossible. Someone had faced Tyler's worst and somehow walked away with dignity intact. Vincent had turned victimhood into something else entirely. Not by fighting back, not by making a scene, but by refusing to play the game at all. Nathan felt something crack inside his chest, something that had been holding him in place for 2 years. If Vincent could do that, maybe. The 15-second video appeared online within minutes. By the end of lunch, it had circulated through every student's phone at Riverside Academy, but the comments weren't what Tyler expected. Instead of mocking Vincent, they questioned Tyler. Why's he trying so hard? The new kid didn't even care, LOL. Tyler's looking desperate. Each notification was another crack in the foundation Tyler had spent years building. In afternoon classes, Vincent sat by the window taking notes as if the morning had never happened. But Nathan, sitting 3 rows back, couldn't stop watching him. For the first time since starting at Riverside, Nathan felt something other than fear coursing through his veins. He felt possibility. During the lesson, he tore a page from his notebook and wrote quickly, "You're different. Thank you." When the teacher turned to the board, Nathan leaned forward and slid the note onto Vincent's desk. Vincent read it, glanced back at Nathan, and gave the smallest nod. That was enough. Nathan sat back, his heart pounding, feeling like he'd just taken his first real breath in years. Meanwhile, Tyler sat in the back of class, phone hidden under his desk, scrolling through the comments. Each one felt like a knife between his ribs. His friends weren't defending him in the group chat. Teachers were giving him odd looks. By the time the final bell rang, Tyler knew he had a problem. Vincent Torres had beaten him without throwing a single punch, and Tyler had no idea how to fight back. That evening, Vincent returned to his modest apartment downtown. He changed into his white training uniform, tied his black belt with practiced precision, and knelt before the small mirror in his room. His reflection stared back, coffee-stained but unbowed. He began his evening drills, high kicks, spinning strikes, defensive blocks. Each movement was precise, controlled, purposeful. His instructor's voice echoed in his memory. The opponent who controls his emotions controls the fight. Tyler spent his evening differently. In his family's mansion, he sat in his room refreshing social media, watching his reputation crumble in real time. The video had spread beyond Riverside, picked up by regional pages with titles like "Bully Gets Shut Down by New Kid's Silence." His mother's voice drifted up from downstairs, sharp and angry, demanding to know why she was seeing her son humiliated online. Tyler punched his pillow, then his wall, his knuckles leaving small dents in the drywall. Rage filled him like poison. If Vincent wanted to play games, Tyler would change the rules. The next morning, Riverside Academy felt different. Students who once averted their eyes from Tyler now whispered openly. Several people approached Vincent between classes, some offering friendship, others simply nodding respect. He accepted it all with the same quiet grace, neither seeking the attention nor rejecting it. Nathan found himself walking taller, his shoulders less hunched. When a junior accidentally bumped into him, Nathan didn't immediately apologize. He just kept walking, and the junior apologized instead. Small moments, but they felt seismic. Tyler arrived late, sunglasses hiding bloodshot eyes. His entourage seemed smaller, 2 friends instead of 5. The hallway parted for him, but it felt different now. Less like respect, more like people avoiding trouble. He spotted Vincent at his locker and felt his jaw clench involuntarily. Every fiber of his being screamed to do something, to reassert dominance, to make everyone remember who ran Riverside. But the memory of yesterday's backfire held him in check. Barely. In Principal Rivera's office, the phone hadn't stopped ringing since yesterday evening. Parents demanding action, school board members asking questions. The video had put Riverside Academy in an unflattering spotlight, and Principal Rivera, a stern woman with grey-streaked hair and zero tolerance for nonsense, knew she had to address it before it exploded further. She called both boys in during lunch period. Vincent arrived first, sitting calmly in the chair across from Rivera's desk. When Tyler entered moments later, the contrast was stark. Vincent's posture was relaxed, but attentive. Tyler's was defensive, combative, his mother's expensive lawyer having already coached him on what to say. Mrs. Jenkins, Tyler's mother, a woman whose wealth had always smoothed over her son's rougher edges, sat beside him, designer purse clutched like a weapon. "This stops now," Principal Rivera said, her voice cutting through the tension. "I don't care about your history, your families, or your social standing. Fighting, bullying, or creating viral incidents that embarrass this school will result in immediate suspension. Both of you, am I clear?" "He provoked my son," Mrs. Jenkins interjected immediately. "This new boy clearly has a history of causing trouble, and now he's making Tyler look bad deliberately." "Ma'am," Rivera interrupted, her tone icy, "I've watched the video 12 times. Your son poured coffee on a student who was eating lunch. Torres didn't retaliate, didn't escalate, didn't even raise his voice. If anyone's on thin ice here, it's Tyler." The room went silent. Tyler stared at his shoes, face burning. Vincent remained motionless, waiting. Mrs. Jenkins opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. "We donate substantially to this school, which is why I'm giving your son a chance." Instead of immediate expulsion, Rivera cut her off. "But understand this. One more incident, and I don't care if your family built this building. Tyler will be suspended. Vincent, the same applies to you. I will not have my school turned into a circus." Vincent nodded once. "Understood, Principal Rivera." Tyler mumbled something that might have been agreement. As they filed out, Mrs. Jenkins gripped her son's arm hard enough to leave marks. "You will not let this nobody destroy everything we've built," she hissed. "Do you understand me?" "Fix this. But how?" Tyler's mind raced as he trudged through the afternoon. Direct confrontation had failed spectacularly. The adults were watching now. Yet surrender was unthinkable. His entire identity was wrapped up in being Riverside's unquestioned king. By the time the final bell rang, a dark idea had taken root. If he couldn't beat Vincent physically or socially, he'd destroy him another way. Character assassination. Nobody could defend against a lie told well enough. That night, Tyler gathered his remaining loyal friends in the parking lot behind Riverside. "We're going to make a video," he said, voice low and urgent. "Make it look like Torres attacked us. Keep his face out of frame, but get the audio, make it convincing. By tomorrow morning, everyone will think he's the real bully." One friend hesitated. "Man, that's pretty messed up. What if we get caught?" Tyler's eyes went cold. "Then you better make sure we don't." They spent an hour staging it, throwing punches at empty air, shouting Vincent's name, adding sound effects in post-production. The final product was crude but effective. Muffled footage of what appeared to be Vincent shoving someone against a wall, voices pleading for him to stop. Tyler uploaded it to an anonymous account with the caption, "The truth about the new kid." Not so calm when nobody's watching. By Thursday morning, the video had already started spreading. Students watched it between classes, doubt creeping into their expressions. Nathan saw it in homeroom and felt his stomach drop. The whispers started immediately. "I knew there was something off about him." Quiet guys are always the dangerous ones. Maybe Tyler was right all along. Vincent watched the video in second period, his face unreadable. But inside, something shifted. This wasn't about pride anymore. Tyler had crossed a line, weaponizing lies against truth. Vincent thought of Nathan, of all the other students who'd found a glimmer of hope in his example. If this lie went unchallenged, it would destroy more than just his reputation. Nathan found him at lunch, voice shaking. "Vincent, everyone's talking." "I know." Vincent's tone was calm, but his eyes were harder than Nathan had seen them. "It's fake." "I know it's fake, but how do we prove it?" Nathan's voice cracked. "Nobody's going to believe us over a video." Vincent studied him for a long moment. "Can you analyze it? Find proof?" Nathan blinked. I was in Media Club last year. If there's a mistake in it, I can probably find it." His hands trembled slightly. "But Tyler's going to come after me if I do this." "Yes," Vincent said simply. "He will." "So the question is, are you ready to stop hiding?" Nathan swallowed hard. Every instinct screamed at him to back down, to let this pass, to survive by staying invisible like he'd done for 2 years. But then he thought about how Vincent had sat there with coffee dripping down his face and refused to break. He thought about the note he'd written. "You're different. Thank you." Maybe it was time to be different too. "Yeah," Nathan whispered. "Yeah, I'm ready." That afternoon, while Tyler's fake video continued spreading, Nathan hunched over his laptop in the library, scrubbing through every frame. Vincent sat beside him, quiet but present. Hours passed. Nathan's eyes burned, his head ached, but he kept searching. And then, suddenly, there, in the background of the supposedly outdoor fight, visible for just 3 frames, a poster for the school's baseball team, a poster that only existed in one location on campus. "Got it," Nathan breathed. His hands shook as he pulled up photos from the school's website. "This poster. It's only in the East Wing hallway, but the video's supposed to be behind the gym. The backgrounds don't match." Vincent leaned in, his expression unchanging, but Nathan caught the flicker of satisfaction in his eyes. "Can you prove it?" Nathan nodded, fingers flying over the keyboard. "I'll make a comparison video. Show exactly where that poster is. Once people see it, they'll know it was staged." "Tyler won't let this go quietly," Vincent warned. "When we expose this, he'll explode." "Good," Nathan said, surprising himself with his own conviction. "Let him." Friday morning arrived heavy with anticipation. The fake video had spread beyond Riverside, picked up by local social media pages. Parents were calling the school demanding Vincent's expulsion. Principal Rivera's office was under siege, but Nathan had spent all night preparing. He'd created a clear, irrefutable comparison. The poster in Tyler's video matched frame by frame with the one in the East Wing, not behind the gym. He'd even taken new photos that morning to confirm it was still there. As students filed into the cafeteria for lunch, Nathan felt his heart hammering against his ribs. Vincent gave him a single nod. This was it, the moment where Nathan either reclaimed his voice or lost it forever. He stood up, legs shaking, and projected his laptop screen onto the cafeteria's display system that normally showed lunch menus. "Everyone needs to see this," Nathan's voice cracked but held. The cafeteria fell silent, hundreds of eyes turning toward the small sophomore who'd been invisible for 2 years. Tyler looked up from his table, confusion shifting to alarm as he recognized Nathan. The comparison video played. Side-by-side images of the poster, the timestamps. The metadata Nathan had pulled from the file showing it was edited. His hands trembled as he explained each piece of evidence, but his voice grew stronger with every word. Tyler Jenkins staged that video. Vincent was never there. This is the proof. The silence was deafening. Then, like a dam breaking, the cafeteria erupted. Students pulled out their phones, screenshotting Nathan's evidence, sharing it immediately. The hashtag #RiversideTruth started trending within minutes. Tyler stood up, face purple with rage. "You little—" He started toward Nathan, but Vincent stepped between them. "Done with the lies?" Vincent asked quietly. Tyler's fist clenched. Everything in him wanted to swing, to unleash the fury boiling in his veins. But Principal Rivera's voice cut through the chaos. "Jenkins, Price, Torres, my office, now." The walk to the principal's office felt eternal. Tyler's world was crumbling with every step, his phone buzzing non-stop with messages calling him out. Nathan's legs barely held him up, adrenaline making him dizzy. Vincent walked steady as always, but his eyes held something new: approval. In Rivera's office, a school board representative had joined. The comparison video played on Rivera's desktop. Nobody spoke until it finished. Then Rivera turned to Tyler, her expression granite hard. "Did you fabricate that video to frame Vincent Torres?" Tyler opened his mouth, closed it. His mother would kill him for this, but the truth was inescapable now. Yeah, I did." The admission seemed to physically shrink him. Rivera sighed, a long, weary sound. "Tyler Jenkins, you are suspended effective immediately. 2 weeks, pending a full disciplinary review. If I find any evidence of further harassment, I will pursue expulsion." Mrs. Jenkins, who'd been called in mid-meeting, made a sound like a wounded animal. But even her money couldn't argue with video evidence. Tyler left the office in ruins. His reign over Riverside Academy officially ended. Rivera turned to Nathan, her expression softening. "That took courage, Mr. Price. Real courage." Nathan could only nod, tears burning his eyes, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming release of 2 years of fear finally breaking. Vincent placed a hand on his shoulder, steady and grounding. By Monday, Riverside Academy felt like a different school. Tyler's suspension had sent shockwaves through the social hierarchy. Students who'd lived in fear started speaking up. Nathan found himself surrounded by people thanking him, asking him to sit with them, treating him like a person instead of a target. He walked the hallways with his head up for the first time since starting at Riverside. Vincent remained as he'd always been, quiet, focused, unbothered by the attention. But now, when he passed through the halls, students nodded to him with genuine respect. Not because he'd fought, but because he'd shown them something more powerful, that refusing to descend to cruelty was its own form of strength. In their first conversation outside school, Nathan asked the question that had haunted him: "How did you stay so calm?" when Tyler poured that coffee, when everyone was laughing. How? Vincent was quiet for a moment, watching clouds drift across the afternoon sky. My instructor taught me that anger is a fire. You can let it burn you, or you can control it to forge something stronger. Tyler let his anger control him. That's why he lost. But weren't you scared? Nathan pressed. Even a little. Terrified, Vincent admitted, and Nathan's eyes widened. Every time. But fear doesn't have to mean surrender. Sometimes it means standing still when everything in you wants to run or fight. That's where real strength lives, in the space between stimulus and response. Nathan absorbed this, feeling like he'd been handed a map to a country he'd never known existed. I don't think I can ever be as calm as you. You already are, Vincent said, meeting his eyes. You stood up in that cafeteria knowing exactly what it would cost you. That's not calmness. That's courage. Different thing, same result. The weeks that followed reshaped Riverside Academy in subtle but profound ways. A group of students formed an anti-bullying committee, with Nathan as one of its founding members. Teachers who'd looked the other way for years suddenly found their spines. Principal Rivera implemented new protocols for handling harassment. The culture didn't change overnight, but the foundation had been laid. Tyler returned from suspension a ghost of his former self. The friends who'd once orbited him had scattered. Students gave him a wide berth, not from fear but from disinterest, the ultimate insult to someone who'd once commanded every room. He kept his head down, spoke to no one, and counted the days until graduation would let him escape. But late one afternoon, as Vincent was leaving the library, Tyler appeared in his path. For a moment, Vincent's muscles tensed, ready for anything. Tyler opened his mouth, closed it, struggled with something internal. Finally, I wanted to say. The words seemed to physically hurt him. What you did, staying calm, not fighting, that was... He couldn't finish. Vincent studied him for a long moment. What was it? Smart, Tyler finally managed. And I was stupid. I'm not asking forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I get it now. A little. Vincent nodded once. A little is a start. They didn't become friends. That wound was too fresh, too deep. But something passed between them in that moment. An understanding that people could change, even if the journey was painful and incomplete. On a crisp afternoon in late autumn, Vincent sat on the bleachers overlooking Riverside's track field. Nathan joined him, dropping his backpack with a comfortable familiarity that would have been unthinkable 3 months ago. So, Nathan said, pulling out his phone to show Vincent something. Remember how I said I was in media club? I'm starting a documentary project about standing up to bullying. Would you be okay if I interviewed you? Vincent smiled, rare enough that Nathan noticed. Only if you interview yourself too. Your part in this was bigger than mine. No way! Nathan. Vincent's tone was gentle but firm. I showed people that anger doesn't win. You showed them that truth does. Which lesson do you think they needed more? Nathan had no answer to that. They sat in companionable silence, watching students stream across the field below, some studying, some playing, all existing in a space just a little bit safer than it had been before. The sun painted everything in shades of gold and amber, and for the first time in years, both boys felt something like peace. Vincent thought about his instructor's final lesson before he'd left his old school. The strongest victories are the ones where nobody has to bleed. He'd proven that at Riverside. But more than that, he'd proven that sometimes the most radical thing you can do is simply refuse to play by broken rules. The story of what happened at Riverside Academy spread far beyond its walls. The video of Nathan's evidence presentation went viral, inspiring similar stands against bullying in schools across the region. Calls came in for Vincent and Nathan to speak at assemblies, to share their experience. Vincent mostly declined, uncomfortable with attention. But Nathan, quiet, scared Nathan, who'd lived invisible for so long, found his voice and used it powerfully. In the end, the confrontation that had seemed inevitable never came in the form Tyler had intended. There were no dramatic fights, no explosive showdowns, just the steady pressure of truth against lies, calm against chaos, courage against fear. And in that quiet battlefield, Vincent Torres and Nathan Price had won something more valuable than dominance. They'd won their dignity, and in doing so, helped dozens of others find theirs. The last afternoon of the semester, Vincent found a note slipped into his locker. It was from Nathan, but the handwriting was different, stronger, more confident. It read, "You taught me that standing still can be braver than charging forward. Thank you for showing us all what real strength looks like." Vincent folded the note carefully and put it in his pocket. Outside, the first snow of winter was beginning to fall on Riverside, covering everything in a blanket of white, clean, pure, unmarked. A fresh start for a school that had learned its lessons the hard way. As he walked out into the cold, Vincent allowed himself a small smile. His work here was done. Not through violence or vengeance, but through something his instructor had always said was more powerful: unwavering principle in the face of chaos. And somewhere in the hallways behind him, Nathan Price walked with his head held high, ready to face whatever came next. Because he'd learned the most important lesson of all: the scariest moment is always just before you find out how strong you really are.